Hello, welcome to lesson 6 of the H module, which is part of the HARP system, which is the end-all be-all do-it-yourself system for getting rid of phone addiction for a lifetime. This is lesson 6, all about habits and specifically stacking and tracking habits. This lesson is all about how to supercharge your habit building journey. So we learned about habits, how they're formed. We even learned about the big 3 habits that you need to take into account whenever you're trying to not only break a habit, but in this case, unleash yourself from the shackles of your phone. Now we're going to be talking about how you can actually stack habits together and just create sort of a whirlwind of productivity, which is why I'm so excited to get into this. So let's not delay the inevitable. Habit stacking is the flywheel that allows your habit practices to gain momentum. So this is all about how you can stack habits on top of one another to just create an entire productive system for yourself, which is so exciting. And it makes use of a lot of things in the brain that are already built into our human biology. And it's just sort of becoming aware of them and then utilizing them in an efficient manner. So we'll continue here. So what is habit stacking? I've sort of already given it away. But it's all about supercharging your habit formation process by daisy chaining habits together one after the other. So if we imagine habits sort of like a staircase here, right? And up here is sort of where we want to be. And down here is where you are right now. This is you. So habits happen every single step of the way. And when we're habit stacking, we're just taking steps up these stairs until eventually we reach the place that we want to be. And where we want to be is different for everyone, but this is the general idea of habit stacking. It's small actions paired together with cumulative impact over time, right? The cumulative impact in this illustration example is that we get higher in elevation and eventually reach our goals. So I just want to write down here, I want to call out small actions paired together. The other part of habit stacking is easier habit integration. So we'll talk about that in the next coming slides, but it might seem daunting right now to think about pairing a bunch of habits together one after the other, but the methodologies that we'll go through that James Clear talks about a lot in his book Atomic Habits makes it way easier to implement. And then we'll also talk about some strategies that you can continue to implement as you move forward in order to keep yourself on track. The power of habit stacking is almost unlimited. It leverages established routines, puts desired habits in the context of the things that you already want to do, and most importantly, it enhances, habit consistency. So I want to call it out here. Consistency. We know that this is sort of the key to doing anything in a successful manner. We've talked about consistency at length so far in this course, and that continues to ring true. So that is what habit stacking is. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how habit stacking really works, or how you can begin to build habit stacking. So this right here, what you're looking at is the formula for creating a successful habit stack. This is something you can use right now to begin integrating the practice of habit stacking into your daily life. Verbalizing these processes give them a higher chance of sticking. So again, this is from James Clear's Atomic Habits. It is utilizing established habits to make new ones. And it's really a catalyst for lasting change. It helps build momentum with small wins, reinforces positive behavior, and triggers a domino effect for positive effects. So very, very basically, the formula is after, before, current habit, I will, new habit. And even just saying it out loud or writing it out is a very powerful way that you can begin to start implementing these into your life. So for example, let's just say, after I make my morning coffee, I'll meditate for 10 minutes. It's just that simple. And, you can imagine if you repeat this over and over and you begin to daisy chain, like we said, daisy chain multiple different habits together, all of a sudden you've created a habit stack that just sort of triggers one after the other. And I think that's the most important part, is the triggering factor, is the part where it says I will trigger the next start. So actually, I will becomes this sort of cycle that will go back to the next habit. And you'll see an illustration of this coming up. But the second half of this formula, the whole idea of habit stacking is having that be the second part of your next verbalization of your habit. So, for example, you could link screen time habits to healthy alternatives. And remember, small changes can lead to big results. It's just a better use of time and energy, which, again, this is all about putting our reclaimed time, right? After we've meditated and practiced some physical exercise and sort of freed ourselves from being addicted to the phone, now all of a sudden we have a surplus of anxiety-free living, hopefully anxiety-free living and just general free time. So putting this free time towards something like building habit stacks is something that we want to really focus on. So here's why habit stacking works. And this is really interesting to me because this is the thing that is already built into our biology. And it's this concept of synaptic pruning. Your brain has built-in processes to discard unused neural pathways and prioritize the ones that are more frequently used. And we can use this to our advantage. And I don't really know actually anything about neuroscience, but hopefully I'm going to break it down here in a way that makes sense to you because it makes sense to me. So if you think about it like this, let's draw a brain here. And again, just another reminder, you're not here for my artistic abilities. You're here to learn how to get off your phone. So just keep that in mind. So to represent this here, I want to just draw a little brain, right? I'm just going to write brain here, just in case there's any question. And I want you to imagine there's you don't have to imagine, I'll just draw it. How about that? On one side, there's a trash can. And on another side, let's just put a check mark. And this will kind of represent a correct decision, let's say. We'll make this green. How about? So on one side there's a check mark, and on the other side there is a trash can. And if you can imagine there just being these neural pathways here, which I'll just represent over here. These are little connections, synapses between thoughts and between, in this case, habits. And I just want to draw them out really quickly here. So imagine there's a bunch, because there are inside your head. These represent habits being formed or habits that you already have, right? This is, let's say this one here is the habit of waking up and grabbing your phone. This one here is wake up, and this is grab your phone, right? So that's kind of how you can imagine, maybe start to visualize what these processes are. Maybe this one here is when you get home from work, it is to read for 25 minutes. Or I suppose more realistically, it's grab your phone and sit on the couch, at least for me. Maybe here, this one is on the weekends, let's say after you're done with lunch, take a nap. So these are all, just imagine all of these over here as things that exist in your head as habits. So the idea of synaptic pruning is the phenomenon where the brain actually gets rid of habits and neural pathways that aren't being used, right? So let's say you stop taking a nap after lunch as often, and maybe over here you stop going on your phone as soon as you get home from work, and hopefully maybe over here you stop getting on your phone as soon as you wake up, and over here you stop, et cetera, et cetera. So what this is actually doing, if we come back over here to our trash can and brain analogy, is it starts prioritizing these pathways that go towards the correct, in our case, the correct answer, right? It starts sort of harping on this, let's just say, leftward leaning towards a correct or a more productive situation, and starts deprioritizing the habits that you don't want to. So this is all just sort of a lot of illustration and a lot of ways of saying your brain. I mean, this is why habits work, right? It's repeated action that's learned over time, and the more and more you repeat that action, the more and more you end up going towards this. And whether or not this checkbox is a positive effect or a negative effect is sort of up to you, and through the lens, it depends on what lens you're looking at it through. We're obviously talking about productivity here, so I'm representing it with a check mark. But if you build the habit, let's say, of continually picking up your phone the moment you wake up, that's going to be a synaptic pruning situation that prunes away all of the other things that you could be doing when you wake up, and it's going to start prioritizing that neural pathway of associating waking up with grabbing your phone. So the most important thing you can do is A, not only be more aware of this, but B, start prioritizing synaptically pruning away the bad habits. And whether or not you recognize them is something that happens over time. But this is why habit stacking works, and this is exactly the biological thing that synaptic pruning and habit stacking takes advantage of. So, for example, in my own life, script writing is a huge process of my short form content. Obviously, I think that's probably the case for most people that make content is writing scripts. So the more frequently I practice writing, the stronger those synapses get. I was talking earlier about when I come into this room, it immediately cues me and it triggers me into being more productive. And that is because I've strengthened those neural pathways that associate this room with productivity. So the whole idea of habit stacking, just habit building in general, is to prioritize those neural pathways that associate one thing with a very positive thing. And that also is the goal of habit stacking. So the stronger your synapses get, the stronger those neural pathways get, the quicker you're able to not only form a habit, but also become very proficient at something that you want to become proficient at. So that is a brief, I suppose, neuroscience 101. That is why not only habits are built, but habit stacking works. It really takes advantage of this neural pathway type of thing and works at its best by pruning away the bad habits and really solidifying those good habits that we want to establish. We'll move on here. So here's some examples of habit stacking, and I'll be here for now. Habit stacking doesn't have to be complex. In fact, it's as simple as implementing new and desired habits on top of old habits that you already have in place. So for example, I was giving this example a little bit earlier, but for example, habit stack for a morning routine, the current habit would be drinking morning coffee. So I'll just say coffee here. So after coffee, we'll just say after coffee, I will meditate. Right? And then after meditating, so that's what I was saying before. After meditating, so this end part, the last half of this habit stack actually becomes the first part of this. After meditating, I will journal. And then after journaling, after journal, I will work out. So you can sort of see how the end of this first stack becomes the beginning of the next one. And the same thing goes for this here, right? You kind of have in fact, it almost looks like a stair-step sequence. That is the basis of habit stacking. So in your own life and in your own mind, even right now, or in the journal, you're welcome to try this out for yourself just in a really bare bones way. Write out this formula. After or before this, I will do this, and just see for yourself how simple it is to build these habit stacks and all of a sudden just develop a morning routine. This is an amazing system that you can implement right now to make your life easier and to start having more productive days and more productive situations, and just continue to free yourself from the shackles of your phone and start putting your reclaimed time into a better space. So that is the basis of habit stacking. Those were some examples. I just want to illustrate here again the cue craving response reward, just a visual, right? You can see how as we go through the cue craving response reward cycle of a habit, the reward becomes the cue, right? That is the important part here. And I want to write that down here because that is very key. Reward becomes cue. If there's one thing you take away from this, it is that the reward becomes the cue, right? Take a look at this visual, see exactly where those arrows are pointing, and begin daisy chaining some habits together, because this is such a powerful tool that you can begin to use in your own life, and finding ways to integrate this into your routines. And I think specifically the routines that you already have is super key to creating a successful habit stack. Remember, habit stacking is something that is meant to fit into routines, to those neural pathways that you already have. So finding those neural pathways and finding, more importantly, the opportunities to add new and better habits on top of them is so key. I already gave you examples on the previous one, and hopefully you can start to begin to see how you can implement this into your own life. Always remember the formula here. After/before blank, I will blank. And the I will part becomes the beginning part of the next, right? The reward becomes the cue. So here's some tips on habit stacking. These are tips that we've already talked about in the course, but they still ring true, and they do really provide a backbone for, I think, just how you should approach anything, not only habit stacking or habit building, but just anything in life. And the most important one that I love is start small. That is so key when learning a new skill. And it's something that I think isn't emphasized enough, which is why I'm trying to emphasize it more now, is starting small, especially when you're comparing yourself to, a place that you want to be, which maybe for you is me, and getting to a place of ultimate productivity and mindfulness. It's easy to think that your small results don't really stack up to someone else's. And that's such an unfair comparison, because I've been doing this for years and years, and maybe you're just starting this, or maybe you've been doing it, you haven't had the opportunity to do it for longer than however long you've been watching this course. So starting small and really, really recognizing that it is the most important part of the journey. It is so important, I believe. So start small, maybe start with a small stack, and try to just implement that into one part of your day. And then from there, once you've been doing that for a couple weeks, maybe, then you can graduate to maybe starting another stack at a different part of your day, or making your first stack bigger. So start small and really take into account what it's like to begin something and to begin learning a new skill, because that is so important in order to keep yourself encouraged. The next one here I want to call out is be specific. So just like the SMART goal framework, the more specific you can be, the higher likelihood of success you'll experience. Clearly define when and where you will substitute screen time, for example, with a healthier habit. For example, after dinner, I will read a book for 15 minutes instead of watching TV. So calling out the time and place, if you can, is an amazing way to not only verbalize your habit that you want to build, but then also really lock it into your mind. So be specific and then also verbalize it. In concrete plans help resist the allure of screens. So the more concrete you can be, the better. The next one here is make a checklist. So I believe we provide one in the journal for you, and you're welcome to use that. But a habit checklist can be as simple as just writing out the habits that you want to complete one after the other. It's just a simple to-do list. And if you can carry that around on a physical piece of paper in your pocket, obviously if it's on your phone, that's a can of worms for you to just be distracted. So if you can keep a little note card that has habits on it that you want to complete, that you can just look at and reference and feel accomplished with, the better. So create a habit checklist and maintain a record of your screen time reducing habits. Like, before I open my email, I'll practice 5 minutes of deep breathing. Simple as that, right? That's another part, is I just want to write that down. Here is keep it simple. Again, so often it's so easy to overcomplicate things and think that you have to, be the most grandiose right off jump, but that's not the case. The simpler you can keep it, the better it is for everybody involved, and most importantly, you. Last one here is celebrate success. I'm actually going to say small wins. Celebrating small wins is so key, and I bring it up so many times in this course, but it's acknowledging and celebrating when you stick to your habits. For example, even if you stick to a habit stack for the first day, allow yourself to sort of revel in what it feels like to be successful. Even a simple mental pat on the back for choosing a book, for example, over social media can make a huge difference. And even if it doesn't seem like it makes a huge difference, it's very important for you to psychologically keep yourself kind of cued into exactly what you're doing. So with these 4 tips, these should be all the tools that you need to create a successful habit stack, right? Start small, be specific, have a habit checklist, and celebrate small wins. And most importantly, I just want to keep harping on this at all times. Keep it simple. It's so easy to overdo it and to think that you need to be perfect right at the start, when in reality, the fun of it is not being perfect. So allow yourself to make mistakes and fail. As long as you're starting small, it shouldn't make a huge impact as long as you can pick yourself up and continue on. So that is some tips on habit stacking. Habits truly do make it happen, even more so when you stack them. But there's still a crucial piece of the puzzle that ties everything together. We've got one more lesson left in the H module, which is so exciting. I can't believe you stuck with me this long. I applaud you. That's amazing. But before you go, I want to reference our journal here, our guided journal, and talk about the curriculum here. So go to the Stack and Track How to Supercharge Your Habit Building Journey section and fill out the habit stacking template. We have one there. Fill it out right now. It doesn't have to be the one that you stick with, but just go through the motions of thinking critically about what habits can I stack on top of the habits that I already have. And lastly, identify the potential changes that you might face in your habit building practice. How can you see yourself getting back on track in your journey towards digital mindfulness? It's completely fine to, miss a day. James Clear says don't miss twice, because the second you miss twice, that is the beginning of a new bad habit. So find ways to be as consistent as possible, whether it's through tracking or habit stacking, and then think about the challenges that you might face in your habit building practice. List them out. What kinds of things would be the most difficult part? So thank you so much for sitting through and listening to and hopefully taking notes on Stack and Track, the 6th lesson in the H module. I'm so happy you're here. The next lesson is called Always Evolving, and we'll go over some tips and tricks that you can implement right now to make sure that these things that we talked about in the H module stick. So I'll see you there.